Hey everybody, how's it going? I'm going to talk about today why I prefer ebooks over physical books. There's a lot of videos like this, and the points that I'm going to make here, they might be similar or the same as other videos. I always, kind of joke on my channel that I'm late to the party with things. Like I never chase algorithms or anything like that. So certainly, like if I was a sort of booktuber channel, which I don't consider myself, I'd have made this video a long time ago. Um, but I don't know. Maybe I do have some different points, or you're just interested in seeing a more personal, kind of anecdotal sort of point of view. I'll talk about some of the more personal reasons why I have my points instead of just kind of saying them. I'll try to at least. So, anyways, if you want to stick with me, here we go. And by the way, look at this. Look at this little mug. I'm having some coffee. So, if you folks are into books or you're here because you like books, I apologize that I don't do more of that kind of content. I love to read. And you know what? Let's turn this into a rambling video. Let's do it. I think that would be more interesting than just making a standard kind of, here are my reasons, and put some generic stock music right behind me, like ukulele music or something, whatever's popular now. Um, but yeah, I don't do a lot of book reviews on here. And that's not necessarily because I don't read too much. I just have a lot of hobbies. That's kind of going to be one of my points. I do have a lot of hobbies, so there's a lot of things I kind of have to juggle, so to speak, sometimes. But when I was younger, I would say that books were probably, besides music, probably, which is always going to be my biggest hobby because it's my career. Um, but books were probably my biggest thing. And I would say I read, without exception, every day. And I would often read a book a day. I was one of those people. And I was reading a lot of Stephen King and stuff, a lot of horror. I was into that, and which of course I still am. I'm a horror hound through and through with movies and books and video games too, and music. But I read so much. I read a lot, and I got out of it. And when I got back into the ebook thing, uh, it did pick up my reading, like not my reading speed per se, but the amount of books I was reading. And not that that's a big important thing to me. You do hear that a lot. That a lot of people will mention, this changed my life. And I did even say that in my Paperwhite comparison video that I'm going to read so much more now that I got this Kindle and everything, which is true. But that's, to me, it's not like an important selling point because it's not like I'm necessarily going for some sort of goal, right? In terms of that, like a lot of people who, if you follow people on Goodreads and stuff, who they review like a new book every day. It's almost like you have FOMO or something, like, oh, I'm not reading as much as I should. That's not important to me. The quality of what I'm reading is more important. But it is certainly true. The convenience factor is unmatched from a physical book. Now, I have four main points, and I'm going to talk about these points, and I'm going to work in some other sorts of anecdotes. Again, I'm already apologizing for the second time because this is going to be a long one and very rambly, but it's how I wanted to do it. My first point, and I haven't listed here, is basic convenience and primarily night reading, okay? As a matter of fact, talking about how much I like books, I have a book right here that I haven't even read yet by Anne Rule called Small Sacrifices, a true crime novel. Somebody got me this last year for a Secret Santa at work. What a cool gift, right? I mean, getting a book as a gift is a cool thing. And as much as I love physical books, and it's the way I did it for the majority of my life for 20 plus years, probably 20 years, let's say 20 years or so. Um, it's obviously a lot easier for me to hold something like this for extended periods of time. Sometimes when I get into books, I will read like 100 pages at a time, or I'll read 2 or 3 hours at a time. Not always, but there are definitely enough instances where holding something like this in my hand for 2 to 3 hours is not really uncomfortable. Holding a book is, right? Positioning the book in a particular way, especially on a mass market paperback like that, where it can be kind of stiff because it's so small, things like that. But really, a big thing is the night reading because I do like to read before bed. I normally read before bed, and by before bed, I mean I get into bed, the lights are completely off, and I like to, instead of going on my phone, I like to just read 10, 15 pages of a book, and it really puts me to sleep. And I always try to read either something simple so that I'm not, reading like heavy duty stuff right before bed, or I only read like a small section of more of a heavier book I'm reading because I don't want to, get into something crazy before I go to bed and get my adrenaline up. I can't do that with a standard book. I can't. I just can't do that. Now, of course, like I could get a book light or something. It just seems very archaic to me. Now, more power to you if you use a book light still. And as a matter of fact, book lights are way better now than they were when I was a kid. I mean, I used a book light all the time as a kid, as an adult as well, and it's just using an e-reader with a light on it like this, especially one that has a warm light that's not going to hurt my eyes, which I never really turn the warm light off on my Paperwhite, by the way. It's one of those things that's just impossible for me to go back. I can't even see myself using a book light ever again, really. The fact that I can just read this so easily and comfortably in pitch darkness laying down, and it's very light, and I can balance the book in one hand. I can't go back from that. So that's my first main reason, is just the overall comfort experience. I like physical media. I like physical things. And that's something that if you follow this channel, you'll kind of see. I collect Blu-rays, right? I prefer to watch Blu-rays over streaming. I prefer to have my video games physical, like I have my old N64. I love the cartridges. And in music, I have, lots of guitar pedals and a tube amp. I have a digital Line 6 Helix and a Pod Go and some digital plugins, which are much more convenient and space saving, but I always gravitate towards the physical things. So I am a person that does like physical sorts of things and physical media and things like that. And I always have been, and I probably always will be. So then why wouldn't I go for physical books, right? I'm the kind of person you would expect, knowing my hobbies, and if you were to know me in person, you would think I'm the kind of guy that would have a bookshelf with a ton of books on it. But with books, to me, it's like you can make the argument that, well, nothing beats holding a book in your hand and smelling the paper and everything. And I agree, that's a great experience. But at the same time, it's like the core of the book reading experience does not change for me. And this is all personal, of course. It might be different for you. But that core experience doesn't change when I read an ebook, though. It's not like the content of the book changes. With certain books, maybe, like House of Leaves or something, if you've read that, a book that requires you to be flipping the book upside down and things like that. That's different, right? But for most books, it's not like it changes very much. And as a matter of fact, it's often a better experience. The paper on the Kindle screen is of higher quality. It's easier for me to read. I can change the font size if I need to, or the font if I feel that the font isn't appropriate for a genre and it's just weirding me out for some reason. And that doesn't change the content of the book. Whereas if I use analog pedals, I just think it sounds better than a digital modeled version. Or if I watch a streaming show, I know that the quality's not quite as good. So it's like that kind of thing. Or if I listen to streaming music on Spotify versus like a record, I know that there are superior ways for my own enjoyment. But with a book, I never have like a compromise like, well, this isn't as good of a version of reading the book. So that's a big thing for me, and that comes into space concerns. That's one of the few things in my hobbies where I can do this alternate sort of digital version, and I don't feel like there's any sort of compromise in the quality there. And because I have so many hobbies, it's a big space saving thing to not have these books everywhere. I love books. Like, I used to stay in this place for work. If you're a book hound, you would love this, where the previous owner of the house was an author. And there was a huge, humongous wall that had a bookshelf built into the wall, and there were books everywhere. And sitting in the armchairs by, the heater in this cold winter night, it was like almost something out of a book. It was amazing, right? I love that too. But I have a limited amount of space in my house. And somebody actually joked in a previous video I made. I was talking about all the guitars that I own, and they kind of made a joke like, "Wow, you pretty much had to sell everything you own, huh, to get all those guitars?" Because I get it; it looks like I'm in an empty room. But if I were to, I'm not going to move the camera, but if I moved it down a couple inches, you would see a huge line of guitar cases, several amplifiers, you would see a couple effects units, you would see effects pedals. If I move the camera over here, more guitars, more effects pedals, PA speakers, guitar rack with guitars. I mean, there's just stuff everywhere in this room, right? So, and I'm the kind of person that doesn't like a lot of clutter, even though I'm kind of a pack rat and I have a lot of physical hobbies. You're getting my point. So it saves space. It helps my mental health a little bit, actually, from not having so much clutter. As cool as it would be to have this wall lined with a huge freaking bookshelf, there's other things that need to go in that spot that take precedence a little bit. So we talked about the convenience, the space concern. Let's talk about two other big ones. Price and the fact that I can demo things. So price is a big one. And people do complain about the price of ebooks because, and you know what, there is another little point, and it's the physical versus digital thing, how they don't own it. I've given up on that. That's all I can say about that. There are other things like video games. All of my Steam games are not physical. I still have, certain things that can still have that physical sort of thing. That's just almost a sort of moral quandary that you could get into. And that's just kind of how I feel about it. I've kind of just compromised on that point. But with that being said, though, price and book demos, okay. Yeah, like I was saying, though, before I interrupted myself, people do complain about the price of ebooks. And I get it, because you would think that they would be substantially cheaper than they are oftentimes. Now, that being said, you can get things like Kindle Unlimited, or you can go do Overdrive or Libby and rent books from your library, ebooks, that is. You can even rent audiobooks and things like that. And you can just find books really cheap often. If you go in the Kindle store, there's lots of books that are like $2 and $3. Now, granted, a lot of these are from indie authors. Not that that's a bad thing per se, but there's a lot of junk out there. Let's be honest. There's a lot of, self-published stuff that's not very good, or it's hard to kind of gauge what the quality is. But when we're looking at like more bigger authors or so, the price is often only a few dollars cheaper than the physical book. So I agree that I think they're a little too pricey. I think if you really wanted to encourage people to read ebooks, there would be more of a substantial price difference. Maybe not like a 50% off sort of thing, but maybe like a 60% off, or even, to be honest, 65% off kind of thing. And it's often only like a couple dollars cheaper. Like the book I'm currently reading is maybe $3 cheaper than the paperback, and it just doesn't seem like a big substantial enough difference to like really win someone over. And I get that, but at the same time, it's still cheaper. And I read a lot of books, so I read so many books that I own that I really feel like if I were to buy all these books physically and then I were to buy them on an ebook, I would save a lot of money. $3 doesn't seem like a big price difference, but if you read like $50 in a year, you know what I mean? Like you've saved $150. Then it starts to become quite a big actual price savings. So I think that's more for folks who do buy a lot of ebooks and read a lot. That's where it starts to come into play. But to someone like me who does read a lot, yeah, I am starting to save money, and it's just the simple fact that it is still cheaper. So that's a big thing for me. The other big thing is demos, and this is something I never knew, I didn't even know was a thing. But at least on Kindle, I believe every book, but I haven't seen a book that doesn't have a demo or a sample. But certainly most, like the vast majority of books, have a demo available, or a sample, if you will, and it's normally like 20 pages or so of the book. Enough to get you into it to see if it's something you're going to be interested in. And I use that for virtually every book that I read. And that's a great factor that you can't really do that with physical books. You know what I mean? A lot of times I'll go to forums and stuff, and people will recommend books and things, and I'll get a bunch of samples downloaded to check out on my free time. Like if I don't have a lot of time to read, I'll just check out a couple samples, see what I'm into. that's just a game changer for me. I use that feature for virtually every book I read. I use it anytime anything catches my eye, anytime anybody recommends something cool in a forum or on YouTube or something. I just simply go to the store, I download the sample, I check the sample out. So that's a big thing for me. And well, that's basically it. That's essentially it. I don't know if that was particularly interesting to hear, but I thought that, I don't know, I still thought I would share it with you folks because, again, going back to my point, I am somebody who has hobbies that deal with the physical medium. And it is unusual for a guy like me to read ebooks, but yeah, it's just like people say, it's just hard for me to go back. I I had bought a physical book when I was at work a couple months ago, and I thought, you know what, I'm just because there was a cool bookstore, and I thought I'm just going to go in and buy a book and read it. And I'm reading it, and I went and I got the sample of the ebook, and I switched to that. Why? Because I was reading it at night, and I'm sitting up in bed. It was a big 800-page book. My hands were hurting reading it. I had the lamp on, and then I just go, I'm just gonna go get the ebook and turn the lights off, which is silly, but that's how neurotic I am sometimes. But and I just like the fact that, again, going back to, I guess, space concerns, I can have thousands of books up with me at any time. Like, I can go travel somewhere, or I can go on a vacation or something. I travel for work often, and I don't have to bring like 5, 6 books with me. Like, I just can bring anything I want to read. And if I feel like reading something else, I don't have to wait to order it, or I don't have to go to the store. Boom, I can just download it, and that's that. And that is going into the point, I suppose, of reading a lot more like this, because I can just go from one book to the next. I don't have to worry about anything like that. So that's that. Well, this went on a long time, but yeah, man, that's why I do it. Hopefully, this was fun. Let me know what your reasons are if you prefer ebooks. I'm sure that a lot of your reasons would probably be similar to mine, but what the hell? Let me know. So, yeah, I am reading a couple books that I'm going to review on this channel. One of them was called I'm Thinking of Ending Things by Ian Reed. I'm going to do a review on that as well as the film. And I'm currently reading a book called The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones, which I'm sure a lot of you probably heard of. But yeah, that's that. Peace out. Have a good one.